It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and with us to talk about her book, In God's Hands, Living Through Illness with Faith, is Maureen Cummings. Thank you for being here, Maureen.
Hello.
You are a mother of 6, a wife, secular Franciscan, but also you were diagnosed with breast cancer when your 6th child was just a baby. Can you tell us about how you first found out that you had cancer?
Well, I thought I had a breast infection because my 6th child was actually only about 6 months old, and I was still nursing him. So I didn't think much about it. And then when I went to the doctor, who I knew very well, he just went silent, and he sat down and just didn't say anything. And at that point, I got the feeling that this was not what I thought it was. So it was quite a shock. I have no history of breast cancer in my family at all. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was not a nice surprise.
Yeah. What was your first reaction?
Well, shock, like most people. You just don't ever think it's going to happen to you. Even if you have a history, you still, we're all very resilient, and we don't think those things are ever going to happen. And then I just decided I just had to take a step back and try and accept it. And even that was a struggle. And why I wrote the book so many years later is there was nothing out there to really help because it is such a shock and you don't know what to do. If it's not you but a loved one, you still don't know what to do except to maybe, breathe a little bit and take it to God and just kind of hang on.
Did it cause you to struggle with your faith at all?
No, because God gave me a big gift at the beginning because I was mentally saying, why is this happening? There's no reason why this should be happening, which was true. I had no history. I was nursing. You're not supposed to get breast cancer when you're nursing. It's like a 98, 99% chance, that you will never get breast cancer if you do that. And instead, what popped in my head was the phrase, why not me? Why not me? I had a great life. Why not? And I knew that was not for me because I was all ready for a huge pity party. Why did this happen? And so that kind of turned my way of thinking about the good things in my life and how other people had so many more tragedies and so many more heartbreaks. And it allowed me to start thinking in a positive way, in a more godly way than what I had, than what I normally would have done.
What kind of advice do you have for people that might not have a great support system and they would get some kind of negative medical results and trying to deal with that?
Well, there's a couple different things you can do. First of all, I would give them the message that you can still have hope and joy in this journey. And what I would like people to know is you can be the best you've ever been while you're feeling your absolute worst if you just work on it. 2 easy things to do are just to use your fingers on your hands. On one hand, you've got 5 fingers, and every day write down 5 things you're grateful for. It's not that God needs to hear that. It's not that you need to reread it. It's that if you do that, you'll start looking for things to be grateful for every day, and that will make a huge difference in your life. The other hand, just repeat the Divine Mercy phrase that's at the bottom of the Divine Mercy picture. Jesus, I trust in you. 5 words, 5 fingers, and with just doing that, your whole day will change.
Was that something that you started doing through this process, or is this a method that you've come up with when you were doing research and writing your book?
Well, neither, really. A friend gave me the idea of a gratitude journal, and I sat on that for a couple days or weeks, and then I finally started doing it, and I could see how it helped me. So I have to give credit to her for doing that. And then the 5 fingers for the Jesus I Trust in You came after cancer, as I was struggling with other issues, and started reading the Divine Mercy, all the Sister Faustina information. And the two just came together when I was writing, and I thought, yeah, you've got 10 fingers, use them to keep track, use them to change your life, really.
One of the things I think I hear a lot is everything happens for a reason, which I think can be bad advice sometimes, or bad words of encouragement, because it implies that God wanted you to have a particular illness.
Right.
But I do believe that God can bring good things out of tragedies, even things that he's sad that happen just because of the fallen world that we live in. How do you deal with that, and how do you reconcile when bad things happen to good people?
Well, I mean, it's just a fact that bad things do happen to good people. And honestly, in the great scheme of our world today, getting a bad medical diagnosis isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. God never wills bad to happen to us. He loves us so much. But I think what you have to do is hang on to that God can make good things happen out of it. And the sad thing is sometimes we won't live to see that. But we have to cling to that promise that in the long run, God is going to win, and God will make something good come out of even the worst things. But yeah, sometimes you got to cling to your faith and cling to hope when bad things happen.
We're talking with Maureen Cummings. Her book is called In God's Hands, Living Through Illness with Faith. And at the beginning of each chapter, it has a scripture verse. How did you pick those scripture verses?
Well, I read the Bible every morning, and that kind of relates back to cancer, too, because I did not read the Bible before I got cancer, but I was a very avid reader since childhood. And when I got cancer, I thought, oh, no, I've read all these books, and I haven't bothered to read God's book. So I thought, if I check out with this thing, what am I going to say if St. Peter says, well, how do you like the Bible? And I say, well, I never got around to reading it. Uh-huh. So I started reading the Bible through this, and I take real quick notes with Bible verses that jump out at me. No big journal, just things that kind of speak to my heart. And so I went back and went through my various journals and picked out things that I thought would help other people as well as myself. And I continue to read. I just read it every day. It's just become a habit. And it's a good habit.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it to everybody. And it doesn't have to be a long time. You can just read 5-10 minutes. But there's usually something that will pop out that you need to think about or that gives you hope for the day. So it's a good thing.
Well, even just kind of skipping through the book and looking at the bold headings on the different sections within the chapters, so much great wisdom on these little kind of quotes from like claim your cross and pick a patron and choose media carefully. There's so many different things. What are some of the takeaways that you could share with us from the book?
Well, I hope there's quite a few in there for people. I think just planning fun things and planning fun things with God. One of the things I recommend when you're kind of have kind of gone through all the intense medical stuff is to spend some time in adoration. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 5 or 10 minutes. Also to go on a pilgrimage. Make it fun. Go somewhere that you can relax and rest in God and still do fun vacation things. I think sometimes people don't even consider that. But we did that when I was all done with treatment. I still didn't have much hair, but we went on a vacation /pilgrimage. And it was just a really good way to think back over everything that had happened, everything that I'd learned, and kind of a signal that now we can move on. So that's one thing to do. Another thing is to just do simple things. And I also wrote the book for caretakers because sometimes friends and loved ones, they don't know what to do. Like bringing flowers or wildflowers to somebody who's going through some kind of medical illness, because it's hard to get out in nature, but yet it's so important to still have that connection with God's creation. And just bringing flowers to somebody, they don't have to be store-bought. They can be out of your garden. And just to bring some light to other people is huge. Other things is just to give people choices. In the hospital, you don't have a lot of choices sometimes. And my niece, I asked somebody to bring me Gatorade because this was a long time ago and they didn't have Gatorade in the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And she not only brought one, she brought 2 flavors. Now that seems silly and tiny, but at the time it was huge that I had a choice of what flavor to drink. So nobody has to do great big things, but little things are a huge blessing.
Yeah. Before the table of contents, there's a little paragraph that says, quote, "Upon receiving news of a serious medical diagnosis, you may feel alone, you may feel overwhelmed, you may feel hopeless. I know I did. I believe that with God's help, whether you are a patient, a friend, or a family member, you will find strength and peace in God's hands." Who do you think will benefit from the book, given that statement?
Well, I hope anybody in a crisis would benefit by the book. It is angled more towards people with medical crisis and their caregivers, but we all have crisis of some kind and another, and at some point most of us have felt lost and frustrated about what's coming next, about what to do, about what direction to go. And most of the things I write, while in the medical world, still apply to just everyday lives, choices we have to make, people we have to deal with. So, yeah, mostly for people that have a negative medical diagnosis or a major medical diagnosis and their caregivers. Because caregivers go through a lot of the same things that the person with the actual diagnosis do. And to further complicate it, they often go through those things at different times. So there's a lot of communication issues that come up between loved ones sometimes. And I think my book will help you understand that, one person isn't trying to be obnoxious or to control the situation or whatever, but they're just at different stages of understanding what is going on and understanding what is going to happen and where they need to go.
Well, where can people get a copy of the book?
oursundayvisitor.com, osv.com, and also on Amazon. And it's just called In God's Hands, Living Through Illness with Faith. And I hope your readers really enjoy it.
All right. Again, it's called In God's Hands, Living Through Illness with Faith. Thank you so much, Maureen Cummings, for joining us today and sharing this with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.